Every fall, the same thing happens across half the country. Little round orange bugs start showing up on windowsills, crawling along the ceiling, gathering by the hundreds in sunny corners of the house. Everybody calls them the same thing: ladybugs. Harmless, cute, good luck if one lands on you. Here's the problem with that. In most of those homes, you're not actually looking at a ladybug at all. And once you know what you're really looking at, the whole story behind that swarm on your window changes completely. Let's clear up something first, because this actually trips people up more than you'd expect. Ladybug, ladybird, lady beetle, all three names describe the same massive family of insects, over 6,000 species worldwide. So technically, almost anything round, small, and spotted from that family qualifies as a real ladybug. That part isn't the lie. The lie is what's actually crawling into your house every autumn. That insect is called the Asian lady beetle, and while it belongs to the same big family, it is its own separate species, not a color variation, not a regional nickname, an entirely different beetle from Asia that just happens to look close enough to fool almost everyone. And it's not even consistent about how it looks, which is exactly why the disguise works so well. Some show up pale orange with no spots at all. Others are bright red or orange with a row of black spots. Some are almost entirely black with orange or red spots instead. Spot count alone can range from 0 all the way up to 19 or more on a single beetle. If you tried to identify this thing by color and spots the way you would a native ladybug, you'd swear you were looking at a dozen different species crawling around your porch light. There's one detail that actually gives it away every single time, and almost nobody checks for it. Right behind the head, on that shield-shaped plate called the pronotum, look for a small black marking shaped like the letter M, or a W depending on the angle you're looking from. Native ladybugs don't have that marking. If you see it, whatever color the rest of the body is, you're looking at the imposter. For comparison, the ladybug most commonly found natively across the United States is called the convergent lady beetle. Usually a fairly consistent red or orange-red, with a white outline around its dark pronotum and two white lines that angle in toward each other like they're about to meet in the middle, which is exactly where its name comes from. No M, no W, no wild swing from 0 spots to 19. Just a steady, predictable little bug that's been quietly doing its job long before the imposter ever showed up. So why is this insect even here in the first place? This wasn't some accidental invasion. The Asian lady beetle was intentionally brought into the United States, released repeatedly across the 20th century specifically to help control aphids on crops and in forests, doing exactly what native ladybugs already do, just with a much bigger appetite and a much bigger population boom once it finally took hold. And that appetite is where things start getting complicated. Yes, it eats aphids, plenty of them, which is genuinely useful for farmers and gardeners. But it doesn't stop there. It eats whatever fits in its mouth, pest insect or not, including the larvae of other beneficial insects like parasitic wasps that are also working to keep your garden pests in check. It's not selectively helpful, it's just relentlessly hungry. That same aggressive appetite hasn't been great news for actual native ladybugs either. Take the 9-spotted ladybug, once so common across the United States, it became the official state insect of New York. Since Asian lady beetles exploded in number, sightings of the 9-spotted ladybug have become so rare that an entire research project exists just to help people find and document any that are still out there. Researchers can't prove one single cause, but competition for food and direct predation from this more aggressive newcomer are near the top of the suspect list. Now here's the part everyone actually experiences firsthand, the invasion itself. Native ladybugs spend winter alone or in small quiet groups, tucked under bark or leaf litter outside. Asian lady beetles do something completely different. As the weather cools, they release a chemical signal that calls in every other Asian lady beetle nearby, and together they go looking for the warmest, driest shelter they can find. Sometimes that's a rock face or a cliffside back in Asia. In the United States, that's usually the sunny side of your house, and once one gets in through a tiny gap, that same chemical signal can end up guiding hundreds more toward the exact same crack. Once they're inside, people usually find out the hard way that these aren't quite as harmless as the ladybugs they grew up with. They can actually bite, though it feels more like a small pinch than anything painful, no venom, nothing medically significant behind it. The bigger issue shows up when one gets startled or squished. It releases a defensive process called reflex bleeding, forcing a foul-smelling yellow fluid out through its own leg joints. And that smell doesn't fade quickly. It can stain fabric and furniture, and the scent itself actually draws even more beetles toward the same spot, which is exactly why vacuuming them up whole works so much better than crushing them one at a time. That same defensive fluid is technically toxic, which sounds a lot scarier than it usually plays out in real life. For it to actually hurt a dog, for example, the dog would typically need to eat more than 20 of these beetles in one sitting, and there's really only one documented case of that level of exposure ever causing serious harm. For the vast majority of pets and people who deal with these things every fall, the worst outcome is a bad smell and a mildly annoying week. There is one small piece of good news buried in all of this. Once they're trapped inside your home for the winter, they don't have any real food source in there. Most of them will die off within roughly 90 days of getting in, which is why that sudden fall swarm eventually goes quiet by midwinter. Just don't get too comfortable, because the survivors, and whatever eggs get left behind, tend to wake right back up and start being active again as soon as spring rolls around. So here's the honest version of this story. That bug swarming your window every October almost certainly isn't the ladybug you grew up believing in. It's a different species entirely, brought here on purpose, thriving a little too well and quietly squeezing out the native ladybugs it was never supposed to compete with in the first place. Not evil, not malicious, just an insect doing exactly what instinct tells it to do in a place it was never originally from. Next time one lands on your sleeve and somebody nearby calls it good luck, maybe take a second to actually check for that little M on its back before you decide how lucky you're really feeling. If this changed the way you look at the bugs on your windowsill, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who've been mixing these two up their whole life. Let me know in the comments, have you ever found one of these swarming inside your house without knowing it wasn't actually a ladybug? Subscribe if you want more videos uncovering the truth behind the bugs everyone thinks they already know. See you in the next one.